Now we come in the Mishnah on Pebet Amud Aleph, the Abu Gurion. Ish Tzadyan Omer Mishum Abu Guria. You want to say it, Moshe? What did he say? Lo ilamed adam et beno. The person should not teach his son. Pamo. That's a donkey driver. No, a gamal, a camel driver. No, a sapan, what's that? Someone,
sailor.
The sailor. And the kadar, someone who sells pottery. So Rashi says on this, all these are called Bale Kranot.
Bale Kranot.
What's that mean? People who spend their time in junctions, corners of streets, of junctions, go from place to place and conduct their business. All of them are
Thieves.
Occupations which lead a person to steal or to deceive. Why? Because these are travelers, they're all travelers, go from place to place. That's the common factor. That's what Rashi means. When they stay overnight, at nights also in different parts, because they stay there in the day, and then at night, they can find out what they can steal, who they can swindle. By the way, when no one's looking, they go and steal, because they travel from place to place. So therefore, people won't even know who the thieves are. And they go and take wood. If they want wood, then sell it and use it from the vineyards, and they take fruit. So that's one aspect of the thieving. Also they're hired out they hide themselves out, different people, to make certain agreements, but they don't keep to it. That a lot of these trades lead people to, since it's a traveling trade, they can more easily escape any form of supervision and punishment. So a person's got to make sure he should teach his son something more positive, and then he adds also chenvani. Yeah. So Rashi says chenvani is a little bit different because he is in one place. The shopkeeper can't so easily escape supervision or escape punishment. But what can he do? Chenvani, melumat ona'ah. Now till he is someone who can transgress the prohibition mentioned the Chumash, Lo tonu ish et amito. You should not oppress or deceive one person, another person. It says that twice in the Chumash, and one applies to ona'at dibur, and one applies to ona'at mamon. The two ways in which any human beings oppress one another. One is by nasty speech and insults, which is one of the prohibitions of the Torah, the Tonu. You should always try to speak good things to other people and not insult them in any way. That's ona'at dibur. And then there's ona'at mamon. You shouldn't deceive them in monetary matters, either to overcharge them. If a person overcharges someone else, even in a small manner, if there's a fixed price, there's a prohibition of the Torah. If it's not a figure, if it's a more standard amount, then it's a question of 6. And also, it refers to other forms of deceit in business life. So that applies to a storekeeper, also even people who deal in larger business. In fact, I want to discuss this, so I will not forget. one of the top mashgichim of the previous generation. When I learned in Yeshivat Chevron, I went and asked the mashgiach, the Meir Chodosh. So I said to him, I did know in Manchester there were some businessmen who were well known for their enormous honesty. And they always consulted Shulchan Aruch. So why shouldn't a person got a shop, he shouldn't pass it on to his children? I mean, for me it would appear it's too open to risks to have a shop or to have a business, because it applies to other businesses as well. That's umdas l'kiva kala means something where you won't have such challenges. And everybody knows, for example, in modern times, the Charedim have even become known in the business world, some of them, to be extremely honest on a very high level. In fact, probably the richest millionaires of the Charedim were a family, I learned from them in Yeshiva also, the Reichman family in Toronto. Their name is Reichman, rich people. I mean, they were so great, such great Bali Chesed, unimaginable. Also in the time of the Holocaust, they already helped people enormously. The whole family, what they did for others, unbelievable. And they learned in yeshivas. And they would even tell me, I learned Chavrusa with one, two of them. You've met them? Met some of the Reichmans? I emphasized, Yitzchak writes for Reichman. I taught them Gemara. In any case, they reached a high level, and they were known in the world, the hundreds. When they became bankrupt, they insisted on bankruptcy law permits you, if you're bankrupt, okay, you don't have to pay back all the creditors, you work some form of partial payment. But I think they insisted they're going to pay back everybody, and I think they did it in the end. So they carried on the business, and they paid up all their debts. And then afterwards they began giving again, because they followed the principle we discussed yesterday, that if you give, in fact I had a whole discussion in this matter, I must also tell you, from episodes which are quite important. The Moshe Feinstein has a teshuvah, it's got a responsa, in which he says that a rich person should not give more than 1/5 of his income to charity. So I brought him a few sources where there seem to be opinions of some of the Rishonim who do say it's permissible if a person is very rich, he can give more. And I say, I myself know of people who give much more than 1/5, people who make good business, but they themselves, they live a modest life, but they give so much. In fact, there was a case in Manchester, I must tell you this, a unique case, where the tax authorities could not believe there was a person who lived in very modest premises, and they found out that he'd given so much to charity that it can't be correct. They brought all his records to the judges, and then the judge said, well, he's never met any person who's given so much to charity, and he always kept records of everything in such a good manner. So I asked him, Moshe Feinstein, what do you mean there are people who I know? So he claimed, Moshe Feinstein, in his experience, all the people who give more, it's not really they give more from the actual income, it's just they instead of giving to the government in America, you do that, instead of giving to the government, what they would have to give the government, it wouldn't be charity. So most of their charity is tax exempt. So really, what they're doing, they do give much more than 1/5. They give it 10 times, even 20 times as much as they're earning, but it doesn't come from their pocket. It comes, instead of giving it to taxes, they give it to charity. Anyway, but you see, when I asked this mashgiach, he said, well, it's very rare that you find people. I said, but the people that learn the Choshen Mishpat thoroughly, Choshen Mishpat, if you learn it thoroughly, keep all the dinim of that section of Shulchan Aruch in the same way that you keep the first section, which has to do with religious law, and you keep all the social laws of the Torah, of the give and take in business world, also completely, then that way you can be honest. But I suppose this mission speaks about the average situation. The Chenvoni. They say, Natan not listing whatever business or trades they have, these are trades of robbers. That's his opinion in any case. And it applies in many instances. And Rashi says, Melumet v'ona'a, latin mayim b'yayin, zrut b'chitin. I mean, I give simple examples. He sells wine, but the wine is mixed with water. And he sells wheat, and the wheat is mixed with pebbles, according to weight. I mean, today we have this as well, that people sometimes, even, unfortunately, you have these things even with Tashmisha Kedusha. Let me tell you, there are cases where people today can make such exact copies of mezuzot and tefillin, the parshiot, that they look exactly as though they're written by a sofer, but they're not. They take the top quality parshiot from a sofer, and then they make a photocopy in such a manner, which one can do today, they look like the original. I think you're learning Hilchos Tefillin now, so it's well known.
Look at your slot screen, more realistic.
Well, there you are, he's already know. And you have to make sure, that's why you have to make sure, just like we sure today, kashrus in food, you have to make sure even kashrut tefillin is correct. Okay. Any questions on this? Well, we'll see in a minute that Abba Gendron, he limits that Nikir v'Kala should not include any of these. But Rabbi Yehuda, in the name of Gumguria, he just disagrees to some extent. They're not all as bad one as the other. What does he disagree with? Let's see. Have you got any questions, or you found any interesting explanations yourselves? Please let me know. Anyway, Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishmo. Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Abba Gurion, not like Abba Gurion. He said in his name, Achamarim Ruban Rashaim. It's true, most of the donkey drivers, there are many wicked people amongst them, even wicked, where they really take advantage of people. But the camel drivers, most of them, talking about the majority are kosher. What's the difference? What's the difference?
The
Mishnah speaks about...
No, what's Rashi say? They rob. But they go from place to place and they rob at night time they go and rob the surroundings. Nobody will know who did it. Or also, even that says, they also deceive the customers who ask them to please take something from one place to the other, and then afterwards they'll claim that, they all claim that something happened that got destroyed. But the camel drivers are nearly all very kosher people. Why? Rashi says, "Sheporshin." There are other explanations, but we'll follow Rashi. "Sheporshin lemidbarot lemakom kedude chayot v'listim." The camel drivers have to cross the deserts, and therefore they face a lot of dangers. There are a lot of wild beasts in the desert, and scorpions and other things, and there are also a lot of pirates and brigands in the desert to attack them. Therefore, they're afraid for their lives. It's well known, when a person is afraid for his life, then he becomes, generally speaking, more honest. They break their hearts to Hashem. I mean, one of the reasons, and you find this true in human history, some of you find it in more individual histories, when people become affluent and everything goes smooth, and you're never faced with dangers, then often your leads become corrupt, ben adam lechaviro, because you don't have any fear of Hashem. Yirat Shamayim, you've got to have some fear of higher authority that will not allow you to go and do wrong, even if nobody knows about it. if nobody knows about it, how will a person follow virtue instead of vice in situations of temptation? Temptation also to go and steal, to take things belong to others. The only way is if, to some extent, he believes in a high authority. We know even some of the idols believe in the high authority that gives them moral rules. And that's the basis, Yirat Shamayim. That's what called Yirat Shamayim. They fear the heavens. We say, even if you look in the Tanakh, the word Yirat Shamayim is used in societies that didn't know about Hashem at all. When Avram, we went to Mitzrayim, he said, Rak in Yirat Hashem b'makom hazeh, baraguni al tva ishti. He wasn't even referring to the fact, because nobody believed in Hashem in Egypt when Avram went the first time. Nobody believed. They'd all left, they'd all become idolaters. But he means there's no fear of any high authority underneath. They don't believe in a high moral authority. It tells them when to kill and what not to kill. So that's it. That's really. But when a person is faced with dangers, he naturally turns and says, "There's somebody above who knows what I'm doing, and therefore I want him to protect me in times of danger." Why do I say this? Because that's one of the things we have to get through in our time, also to the Gnostic sections of Am Yisrael, which came out, let's say, in the last war. Tzukeitan, very much. When the head of the brigade, before the difficult battles they have to go into, he said to them, you've got to have the name of Hashem in your mind. If you can't put on tefillin, if not, at least pray to Hashem. And they're naturally everyone prays to Hashem when he's faced with death. And all those who criticize these people and say, how are you introducing religion into the army? Could have been army like the other. They've never faced death. The person who faced death knows it so. I know it even from the statement made by an earlier prime minister, time of the Yom Kippur War, called the mayor was prime minister, and when she spoke to English-speaking journalists, she quoted verses from the Tanakh, and she said, we have to pray to God, He should help us. So the Israeli members of Knesset went up to, why do you say such a thing to the people in Israel, in Ivrit, they'll understand it. He said, no, if she'll do that, then everybody will think there's no hope left for us to be successful in the middle of this terrible war. Yom Kippur was a terrible war. Almost 3,000 people, soldiers were killed. So it's going to earthquake. She said, if I will say it in Hebrew, and for the last 40 years or 30 years, I've been head of politics, and I never mentioned the word of Hashem in anything, they'll think we're in a hopeless situation. But she said, of course I believe in Hashem, And just when you're faced, that's what Rashi says here. But the camel drivers, they're Yireim because of the dangers. Now, then he says furthermore, what's the next one? Hasapanim rum chasidim, not just kashedim. People who have to be sailors and go in the wild seas and survive the storms, they, even saints, it says, שפורשים למקום הסכנה ותמיד הם ברעדה יותר מן הגמלים. They go to such dangerous situations with their pirates and their storms and the shipwrecks, so they are in trembling all the time, and as a result they also become chassidim. No, we've got to change our whole life. But it's a beautiful illustration that's given in the Maftiv Yom Kippur. What's the Maftiv Yom Kippur in the afternoon? What is it?
Yonah?
Yonah, yeah. And Yonah went into a ship to escape from Hashem and said, well, he wanted not to fulfill his task, and there was a huge storm, and there was this safe to say, because I mentioned the symbol already, there were 70 people on that ship, each one representing a different nation, and they all worshipped their idols and said, all the idols, they prayed to them, save us from this terrible shipwreck. And in the end they found Yonah, and Yonah said, it's because of me. And then when they threw him out, the storm went away. No more storm, and they all decided to all become Kedet Tzedek. So that's a symbol of what might happen in our time as well. The whole world has been described by many people as a spacecraft called Earth. And the spacecraft called Earth, it needs to be steered through stormy waters. And Am Yisrael have to steer and to save the 70 nations from becoming shipwrecked in this spacecraft called Earth. And we're in the middle of that battle at the moment, as you know. Now we come to next. You're making no statements and all this, but now comes along Rabbi Yehuda. He adds extra things that weren't mentioned by Abba Gurion before. What does he say? He said, Tov shebarofim legehinnom. Now, so how do you explain that? The best of doctors, they go to Gehinnom. Yeah?
Yesh mefarshim, best of the physicians.
Hmm?
Yesh mefarshim, the best of the physicians. That means because they rely on their own chokhmah, so they wouldn't pray so much and finally merit in this kind because they rely on their own.
Yeah, so one explanation is, I'll develop it a bit more like you've said, there's one explanation is not here. It perhaps hinted at also in Rashi, since you mentioned this. Let's see Rashi. Anyone got another explanation? What's mean the best of the doctors are for Gehinnom?
Because they don't want to heal. They don't want to heal poor people.
No. It's because they think that
They
it's
want money, you mean?
Not money.
Huh?
Rashi says that.
Yes, yes.
Nice. But also that they're thinking that it's through them bringing the healing.
The what?
That's through them themselves, and so the best doctors that they're healing the most people, that they think that they're greater, that they think that the healing is actually, that they're the conduit of the healing. And so
Yes.
it's actually coming from Hashem.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Any other
Yeah,
explanation?
they kill people.
Huh?
They kill people.
Yes. Any other
And
explanation?
the other one is that
They don't fall sick because they eat very healthy.
Yes.
they think that they don't need God because they can heal themselves.
Yes. So, yeah. Well, there's. So let's see first Rashi, who mentioned at least one of your explanations. The first explanation is Eino yarei min hacholi u'ma'achalo ma'achal briim ve'ein meshabeh libo levakom. It's because they have generally speaking, doctors are paid good wages and they make good business, and therefore they're not afraid of illness, and as a result they don't break their hearts to Hashem, and therefore I suppose they don't sympathize really with the sick people, although they see sickness around them, but they always think it won't come to me, and as a result they become more godless because they only think of their own benefit, and if they're able to keep themselves healthy, therefore they're not afraid of sickness, and that's one explanation. Upamim shorek nefashot. And there's something worse. Sometimes they cause death. Why Gehinnom? Gehinnom means a person who in his lifetime is only concerned with his own body, his own health, and is sure of it, everything's going well with my body, the doctors know how to do that. And therefore they're not afraid of Gehinnom because their whole heart is not connected with Hashem, because they're connected only with material things. So this first pshat of Rashi is also brought, and as a result, sometimes also they kill people. Why they kill? Because they're careless. They're careless about others, and they kill them. And by killing somebody, you get Gehinnom. You could get the punishment of the world to come will come upon you for having been the Mishmayim. But because you've caused others through your own negligence, caused them to die. You don't care when people die. But he adds, and also because he doesn't bother to heal people who are poor, because they're only interested to get their salary and have enough and become rich. No, that's one explanation. Another explanation I saw is the other way around. It's not the true pshat, but it's a very interesting one, given by the earlier one, the first Belzer Rebbe said this. Tov shebarofim legehinnom, it says like this, that a person who is very careful. He doesn't want to operate frequently. He says, I can't operate. I can't take anything which is a risk because I'm afraid of Gehinnom. So it's good that a doctor should feel that if he's negligent, doesn't do his duty properly, he'll fall into Gehinnom. That's what this case was earlier. The first Belzerov, when he was sick, so they offered different doctors should come. Said one doctor is not keen to come because he's afraid. He's afraid that if he makes a mistake, he'll be guilty. He'll really be the one who's guilty. It's well known that there are many cases where people, they get the best doctors and then they ask the doctors, well, what do you say about his future? What's your prognosis? And the doctor says, well, prognosis will be successful, and if you do this operation, if you let me do the operation, then he'll live another few years. And then the person dies shortly afterwards. Then the family come and make a claim against the doctor, even an illegal claim. You promised us that he would live till so and so. That's why a wise doctor will not take such risk, will not give a prognosis. He'll say, maybe yes, maybe no. You shouldn't be blamed. But there's also another explanation. The Tov Shebroifel Gehinnom, a doctor, a surgeon especially, but also other doctors, they have to have a certain quality of not being good and kind. A doctor sometimes is very kind to the patient, and is too kind to him. And if the patient says, this is painful, this is difficult, the doctor will say, well, don't do it. And the doctor has got to tell the patient clearly also that if he wants to become healed, he'll have to take an operation, he'll have to take bitter medicine. The doctor is too tough. Doctor's got a doctor especially who is in charge of operations, then he's also got to have the quality a little bit of being cruel in order to be kind. But if he's too kind, not always the best. Another explanation. And of course, one of the main explanations, like you said, a doctor who thinks I'm very good and doesn't pray to Hashem, then he thinks that he can take the place of Hashem. Hashem is also mafli lasos. And you find also most doctors, in fact, will tell a patient that, you know, I can, you've got to have an operation this way or that way. But ultimately, everything, the doctor should say to the patient, ultimately, I'm not the one entirely responsible, I'll do my best. The question is, can a person say, because Tov Shebrov from the Gehinnom, so therefore, I've learned medicine, but I'm going to give it up. A person who knows something about medicine is able to save lives. Is he allowed to back out from it? Halacha l'maisa today. That's a question. So we have a person, Tov Shebrov L'Gehinnom, goes through all the explanations, and a person is a doctor, he's got to give up, he's got to give it up. If he thinks he can't be up to the necessary standard, what's the din in this? Now, first of all, it says in the book, from where do we learn that it's a mitzvah to heal? Is a mitzvah to heal? Person not well, is a mitzvah to heal him or not? And you can heal him. You've learned the art of healing him, whatever the sickness is. You've learned first aid, so therefore you can help a person in a dangerous situation to give him first aid. Or if you're a better doctor and is in danger of life and you think you might be able to save him according to your profession, then can you say, I don't want to do it. There's nobody else but you. I don't want to do it because it's a risk or because of all these others.
It's a crime.
Is he allowed to resist?
It's a crime.
It's like you've got to save him. It's like a drowning man, you've got to save him.
What the halach?
Can't stand by. All samud.
There are many statesmen in Chazal, yeah. But what is the ruling in halacha and what's the source?
He's obligated.
Huh?
He's obligated.
What source is there for the obligation?
Don't stand by your brother's property.
The chai b'hem.
A chai b'hem is what means that a person has got to save his life. Yes? But from where do you learn the person's got to save someone else's life? It doesn't. There's different ways of healing people from danger. You find a person sinking in the river and you can swim and he can't. What do you have to do?
You have to say.
Where do you learn it from? From where do you learn it? What's the source? So look, it says in the Chumash, "V'rapoy rapay." Where does it say that? If a person is injured, A has injured B, then A's got to pay doctor's fee to B. And that learned for Rapoy Rapay, he has to pay for the refuah, and from here we learn we can't just shoot the way for happens. So you see, a doctor has got permission to go and heal people who've been injured. But then it says permission. But from where do you know it's an obligation, like you said? From where do you know it's an obligation to heal or to save people's lives? Because do you know pasuk from the Chumash? It says, "Lo tamor adam re'echa." You should not stand passively when your fellow man is in danger of losing his life, because that's what it means. Loss of blood means loss of life. So if you can swim and he can't swim, you've got to try and save him. Yeah. Or it's similarly, if you see that he's falling down and he's hurt himself, and you know how to apply first aid, you have to apply it. It's obligated. It's an obligation already. And it's like this, the Rambam learns it out from the Gemara, which says, if you see a stray animal, what do you have to do? There's nobody else around, the animal falls down.
Back home.
The animal falls under its burden, what do you have to do?
Lift it up.
You have to lift it up. You can't just say, none of my business. It is. It says, and if it's a stray animal, it's lost its way, you've got an obligation to give that stray animal back to its owner, if you can. So the Gemara says, Hashevat al Chayim is a mitzvah of the Torah. What's the first mitzvah? Shatorah nidreshet b'hen, we said this morning.
Kal
v'chomer. So the Gemara says, if when the animal is in danger, has lost its way, you've got an obligation to give it back to its owner. So therefore, Hashavat Adam, a person in danger of losing his life, yeah, and you can save his life, Kal v'chomer. Much learn a Kal v'chomer. So, animal, human beings more than animal. Yeah? So therefore, certainly you've got to save, got to get a person who's in danger of losing his limb or his life. So you've got to get back his limb or his life if you can. If you've got the ability to do so. That's the source of Rambam. It's the obligation to be a doctor. Or if you don't know enough about it, then you've got to use it if people come to you. That's why when the Rambam became a doctor, professionally, when he went into it, he would accept any person who came to him. It says that he had to. Dr. Shivat Hufo. He had certain times when he could do, he had set aside. He describes his letters how he was so busy, but he felt it's his duty, so therefore he had to save people's lives. So therefore, that's the source for, even though Tov Shebrofim Lekehinom, but you have to take it over in the right way. And this can be, it's not necessarily a contradiction, what Rav Yehuda says. In other words, as long as you say tefillah, you recognize ultimate principle Hashem, but it doesn't mean to say we can stop healing. And that's why the din is on Shabbos. If someone is in danger of life, then what should you do?
Do whatever you need to do to save the life.
And the best doctors have to be Mechal Shabbos in order to save the life. It's the din, you could take the best people. And that's why today you'll find there are so many organizations, especially by Haredim, to help people for whom lives have to be saved in different ways. So that's Tov Shem Rihim. Now, now a tabach is a bit different to a shochet. Shochet is a person who actually slaughters the animal. Tabachim are butchers. So it says, even the most kosher of tabachim are partners with Amalek. Now what's this supposed to mean?
There's also different pshatim on this.
Yeah.
Some say
which
explanation of Rashi is a little bit difficult to understand, because it says like the fact that they often have to deal with non-kosher meat which causes big losses, financial losses, and finally gonna sell him, cause them to corrupt their deeds. But another explanation is simply that the cruel act of slaughtering permanently animals is like causing them to be as cruel as Amalek was the first nation who attacked Israel with Sinat Chinam,
Yes.
and without any reason. And this is an explanation which is easier.
I'll tell you a good explanation according to reading Kosher Shel Tabachim. He becomes a short of Amalek. Means since a butcher has got to make a living, and let's say he works together with a shochet, he buys animals, and let's say a third of the animals become treifa. How can he make a living?
Sell it to the goy.
Pardon?
Sell it to the goy.
Yeah, that's what it says here. It's good, it's kosher tabachim, it's not the simple meaning, like you said, the simple meaning, but it's quite a good explanation. A tabach who wants to keep kashrus is under constant temptation that he will not keep kashrus. And there have been instances in recent years as well where they found that butchers, they swindled, and as a result, whole communities had been buying treifa meat under the kosher label. Yeah, it happens. That's why you need a lot of supervision for that. And especially today, here in Israel, there's been a whole movement to permit people to say they're kosher when they have no supervision. So it's also because it's not a simple situation when it turns out that quite a few, some is because the shechita wasn't kosher, and some is because they found treifas in the animal, so they've got to be shutaf with non-Jews. And that is the best easiest way. If you got, that's as you had in Chutz La'aretz, it was easier. And here you've got to work with the Arabs, not so simple. In Chutz La'aretz, so the butchers made a business. Let's say a butcher would buy butcher also handles something buying in animals. They would buy animals, give them to a sheichet, and the sheichet turns out that half of them are treifa. Yeah. So if he's got a partner who's from Amalek, he will be from Amalek, because the non-Jewish butchers, the Jewish butchers sometimes also, they're all the time surrounded with bloody cuts of meat and so on, even with the animals themselves, where they do shechita, so they become very gross in their character and their speech. And having been somebody who, for a time, I was also one of the best in supervising the shechita in the abattoir of Manchester. It was not too pleasant experience. There was a vast difference between the mashgichim and the shochtim and the non-Jewish butchers there. The non-Jewish butchers there, they take on some of the characteristics of the oxen and the cows, and blood surrounding them. But if he's got a shutaf who we can give all the treif ones for and be paid quite well for it, so you can manage it. See? That's possible.
Is there?
But the Rashi says, let's do the Rashi. Rashi said, Rashi's got tov shebetabachim, tzveike treifas boas liyodek. There are many doubtful situations of treif and meat that come to his hand, because al mamono machilo, and he wants to make a living, and he's concerned about losing money, and therefore he claims that they're kosher when really they're treifa, and that's a problem until today, and that's why we have to have good supervision for all kosher meat.
Is there?
Yeah.
Do the consumers have any responsibility by demanding, very cheap meat? They're demanding cheap, meat that, price is similar to non-kosher meat. And people need to be educated and to understand that this is, this is a kosher meat and it takes time and effort.
Yeah.
And, we had policy at home, the meat that we bought, maybe we weren't having a lot of meat, but we were buying good quality meat, and we understood that it was at a higher price. And is there a responsibility in the consumers to understand that?
Well, some they understand, some they don't understand. It depends on each community. but it's a communal responsibility to see that there should be a possibility of kosher meat, which is available to not just to the richest, but also to the poorer section of the community. Now let me continue the next piece. Rabbi Noroi Oima Maniach Ani Kol Umnat Sheba'olam. And says, I'm leaving aside all the different trades that are available to my children. But I'm only teaching my son Torah. Why? Because because the reward for it has in this world, and the capital reward remains for him for future life. So the question is, how can Rabbi Noroi contradict the statements made above that a person Olam always has to give his son a training? All right, and he's got to choose an Umm to give a color. So does he disagree with him? And also they say there's a statement made in Pirkei Avot that Tov Torah Derech Kol Torah she'eni b'malacha, says any Torah learning which does not also have by its side engaging in some concrete trade or professional occupation, so Fabeteilav will geret avon, its end will be nullified and it will bring a person to sinfulness. Also for the same reason, because it doesn't have money, and therefore he'll be led to become a swindler or robber. Therefore he's got to teach his son also some form of occupation, which is Nikia Vakala. So is it a contradiction or not? And if so, how do you resolve that contradiction? Can anyone see any explanation? Which is quite some importance. Yeah.
I think Pirkei Avot is getting at the fact is that, you could, let's say, study Torah your whole life, but just studying Torah is not enough. You actually have to go out and use the practices that you learn as you're studying Torah to really make it practical and give yourself a reward. Because sitting in a room all day just learning Torah is not going to do anything for the world. You have to go out and first you have to teach,
yes.
but you have to use the ethics that you learn, let's say.
Yes. So look, I want to give you two basic interpretations of this on these lines. One is as follows. I already mentioned earlier here that there's another difference of opinion brought in the Gemara between Rabbi Shmuel and Shimon Yochai. Shimon Yochai was someone who believed Torato Umnato. The word Torato Umnato means the Umanut is the Torah, like Rabbi Noroi says. And then the Gemara concludes the difference of opinion between the two. Because the Gemara says, many people tried to do like Rabbi Shimon Yochai and failed, and many people did like Rabbi Shmuel, who just together with Torah, you also have an occupation, trade with the Nikia Vakala, and they've been successful. That's the conclusion of the Gemara. Now practically, what does it mean? Also, you find this in the Rambam. The Rambam, on the one hand, he crystallizes all contradictions, tries to crystallize them. I gave the example of the Shevet Levi, and the Rambam says, Shevet Levi is not just Shevet Levi, it means any person who wants to dedicate himself entirely to Torah may do so. So therefore, this is what Rabbi Noroi meant. Rabbi Noroi meant like this. We agree to it that as far as most people are concerned, one has to follow the principle which Rabbi Meir says, a father has the obligation to teach his son an umnot. But if a person sees that his son has special characteristics and can dedicate himself to Torah, like it says in a number of places in Chazal, if a person who studied Torah for 5 years and was not successful, then he should make sure that he's got something else. But if a person has great success in Torah, he can go in the way of the Shevet Levi, and Hashem Yisborah will look after him. So therefore, he can be like Shimon Yochai. A person is permitted to go like Shimon Yochai if he's on a sufficiently high level. And Noroi saw his son is on that level. That's one explanation. So therefore, you can see I've got a son who I see the way he's getting into, he's really involved in the learning. Fine, and make a great Talmid Chacham, and already people support him. Hashem will give him support in different ways, like in the tribe of Levi, that the Rambam says. But otherwise, the Rambam says a person has to have part of his time and effort must be given over to having a livelihood. Because if you don't have a livelihood, then you'll suffer. That's one explanation. Another explanation I saw, which fits in quite well with this, is that you'll find, and this has application today very much, it's what I tell many parents also sometimes to appease them. When the boy wants to go on learning, the parents want him to go to college or get a high degree or a high profession. So I say like this, and it's quite valid. There are many aspects, especially which apply today more than earlier times, that as parents think, well, when you say, oh, his son's going to be a rabbi, you say, well, that's not a parnasa for Yiddish young man. Oh, he's just going to be a doctor or a lawyer. Then you make good business. But if it's just going to yeshiva, so what will he do? So the answer is today, yes, today even by going to yeshiva you get a good profession. Because you become a teacher of Torah, become a rabbi of a shul. There's so many different vacancies available all over the world for people who've just studied Torah that they can get a high level. That's one thing. But there's also another aspect to all this. That when Rameh says L'olam, so here Rav Yehuda disagrees. Rav Yehuda says, Rabbi Noroi disagrees. Rabbi Noroi says, why do I have to teach my son an umnot? I'll only teach him Torah when he's still with me. When he's, let's say, if he's an adolescent, I'll tell him, you go to school, only learn Torah, carry on like that. And the profession, if you're going to need it later on, you can get yourself. Doesn't need me as a father to introduce you to business life, introduce you even to all these rather doubtful professions. If you go into business, as a shopkeeper, you might go the wrong way. Learn Torah. Learn Torah for good few years, and afterwards, choose your profession. That applies especially today. For example, I'll tell you, people, let's say people in Eretz Yisrael, many people, they educate their children, they learn a little bit of Limudei Chol, but very little. They mainly learn Torah all the time, different parts of Torah. And then when they reach the age where they're getting married and they're parnasah, then they take a course, and in a short time, what took others, let's say the first almost 20 years of their life to go and take degrees from colleges and so on, in 1 year they can reach a higher level and earn more money. For example, high tech. It's well known today that some of the biggest people in high tech, and even the people in the army, there's a special group in the army for Avreichim. Avreichim who've learned Torah all their lives, and they like to take them. They make the best, they need top people to work on the computers. They take the best people from the Avreichim, who send because the learning Torah is well known. Even Korea, they recognize it. The best way to develop your mind is through learning Torah for all subjects. That's why Nobel Prize winners, there's a far larger proportion, and most analysts have said it's because of the rich legacy of learning Gemara. So if those who've learned Gemara all their lives, they go and they can take a commuter course in a year or two. They outdo all the others. And that's the regular situation today. They know that. In fact, when there was a whole question, how many people do you have to take to the army in adolescence? Everybody agreed, so even the leftists, you have to make sure that all the Elohim, all the geniuses in learning Torah, they have to keep on learning Torah, because this is the intellectual wealth of Medinat Yisrael. That we've got these Elohim who can reach a high level. But now I'll tell you another pshat, which is even deeper. The Gemara says in Eruvin, Rabbi Meir, just to end with this for the moment, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Noroi, but you answer me the question. They're the same person. Yeah? Rabbi Meir was given that name, Shemeir Eine Chachamim Balacha. Meir was the one who brought light to the eyes of the wise in halacha on the highest level. Yeah, he was that Gadol Torah. But and Roy was his private name. He says, my son, I've got the right to get my son to learn Torah. But for the general public, Reb Meir made a rule, Ruba Kakola, most public, you better make sure that your son, when he's young, has a basis in an umnot. Otherwise, afterwards, he'll be led to robbing others in one way or another. So that's I think, is from that Gemara would be the best interpretation.
That's great.
Why?
Please, I'd like you to go on to the end. Tomorrow will be the last year. So please finish the mission, the Gemara, to the end if you can.